Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. I have to apologize. It has been some time since I have released a new episode. Honestly, it's because life has gotten hectic. And also editing, it's not that much fun. So I had to pull this episode from the vault. It's just been collecting dust, and now I've been able to clean it up, add a little polish, and now I present it to you all. So this episode was fun because it was the first episode in a long time where the legend Bobby A was with me in the nest. We could look each other eye to eye as we dialogue. And it was interesting to hear some of the things Rob was seeing in taking place in New York, right? He has been gone for some time. So his observations, what he has seen in his time back, is interesting because he's seeing things through a slightly different lens than maybe you or I who have weathered the storm here since the beginning. One thing I want to note, I had mentioned this months ago, that I was going to change the name of the podcast. You were going to see some new artwork. Well, today's the day. You're going to see it. So don't be frightened. Don't be alarmed. When you access your podcasting interface and you see a new name and you see a new picture, it's still me. It's still us. As the captain, sometimes you have to course correct, and that I have done. So without further ado, I'd like to present to you the next conversation. I hope you enjoy. So it's good to have you back in the nest. This is the first time in a long time that we've actually had physical proximity to one another.
Yes.
Hey, so it's nice to see you here. Your presence is
Likewise.
felt.
Back in the studio, and it feels good. Got off to a little bit of an inauspicious start here, but not going to get into it too much. But yeah, it feels good to be back. Chris, how are you?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here with you right now, recording this, which is, it's kind of great because I was thinking about this. I was talking to someone, thinking about the different episodes we've done so far and how, except for maybe the first one or two, every other one has been done
It's been
remotely.
remote, yeah.
And it's kind of interesting that, like, as this pandemic is starting to wind down, hopefully, fingers crossed, we get a chance to reignite that original fire and do this live together. So I'm happy.
Yeah, it's always better this way. But I got bad news for you. I don't think the pandemic is ending anytime soon. We're looking at another year.
I think, yeah. I mean, I was talking to someone about this. I think I was talking to my grandmother about this, and it was interesting because sometimes, you're surprised when someone says something that you just don't imagine that, like if they say a thought that you're just surprised that they would think. And that's probably, like, in my case, like, to my detriment. Like, I just was surprised, like, oh, that's kind of insightful. But it was like she said, I was like, normal, like, well, it's starting to slowly get back to normal. And she said something to the effect of, I don't think normal is going to have a new definition. And I think
Might be right.
I think there's truth
Yeah.
to that. Like wearing a face mask, like, that's not going to go away.
New York is just so wildly different than the one I left. It's incredible.
Well, let's start with that. Like, what are some of the things, because you've been back for at least a week and you've lived here your whole life. What are the things, or what is the feel that you get walking around Williamsburg or walking around downtown? Like, do you get a different vibe? Like, what's your sensation?
Absolutely.
What's your spidey sense saying?
Energy is lower. There's not that vibrancy anymore. There isn't the culture. You don't feel the culture and the literate, like, especially around these parts. You get a lot of native New Yorkers. I walked here, so I passed that neighborhood. You know it. You've been around here for a while. There's the native New Yorkers. No one's really outside. If you're outside, you're definitely wearing the mask. Everything is closed if it's not a grocery store, or some restaurants are open, but not really. No bars open. There's no sporting events. There's no concerts. There's no theater. There's cultural events. The museum's just open, so that's better. But it's still weird because they only let a certain amount of people in at a time. It's just different. It's just everything good about New York is either a quarter back or still shut down entirely. And especially the feel, like, just you could just tell people walking around are tense. I saw a woman yesterday yelling at some man who wasn't. He was eating a sandwich on a park bench. He wasn't wearing a mask. She's obviously insane because she just randomly approached this. He was like a middle-aged Latino man, just rocking a sandwich, just trying to crush his sandwich. He's probably doing construction somewhere because he had the vest. This woman goes over to him and she says, "Where's your mask? You're attacking people." While the man's eating, starts just giving it to him. "Where's your mask? You're attacking everyone. Realize what you're doing." So that just gives you, in a nutshell, a microcosm of what's been just started screaming at the sky. He wasn't wearing. And she claimed that he's attacking everyone while he's doing it. I see what she's trying to say, but she's batshit crazy.
I don't. So wait, hold on. So she. Okay, so I have yet to see this happen, and I've hear it like Drew's not to throw him under the bus, but there's been a couple times where he has been out and about, and like in that situation where it's like a completely reasonable reason not to have a mask on, like you're eating something. Like how are you gonna take a bite, cover your mouth, take a bite, cover your mouth? Like
just take it off. Yeah.
Correct. Or you're drinking something. Like in the gym, like I see people kind of drop their mask for a second to like take a drink of water, which is like makes sense. Very reasonable. And he's been in the city where like he's gotten yelled at. But I've yet to see that. Like I have yet to see someone have kind of like the balls to go confront someone that they don't know about their behavior. So that's kind of crazy. Okay, what else have you been?
Well, it is,
noticing?
especially in New York. You don't know who you're yelling at. That's a dangerous game that you're playing right there. So, but this woman, she was screaming though, so you could tell like she has other issues going on. Cause I just think the overall vibe is different. It's kind of sad.
So it's kind of funny, right? So listening to you talk about your observation of the city because you've been gone for, I mean, I would say 6 months. Like you left around Marchish, right?
Correct.
So the majority of what's been going on in the world, you have been experiencing in Florida. But from my standpoint, like someone who stayed in New York that whole time, it's interesting because it's actually, I think it's getting a lot better. And I'm actually noticing the opposites of what you're noticing. Like it's funny because from my window, I live on a main street, and like flash forward, go back 5 months, no one's on the street. It looking like I want to say like Book of Eli, The Road. Like people are just kind of walking. You're not going out without like a reason. You're like going out to like go shopping or do something. But now you see there's a social scene is coming back. Like you see people dressed nicely, like they're like going out. Obviously they're going to do something. And I wish it's funny. I wish you had come here like maybe a month ago when it was warm. I did not realize this, and you being a Puerto Rican gentleman, maybe you can give me some details on this.
Here we go.
I did not realize the Latino population, and hell yes, I'm generalizing. Don't hate me. Is really into volleyball.
Blessing you. You can make this.
Okay, thank you. I've been blessed. I've been given permission. Like I didn't realize how much they were into volleyball. Is this true? Like, is this like a across the board thing?
So, Caribbean Hispanics like two things: baseball, volleyball.
Okay,
In the sport.
I did not know this because I'm telling you honestly, even like at the height of the pandemic, or I shouldn't say the height, but like a month ago, you would go to a park next to me, and there would be 100 people there playing volleyball Saturday. Like I would say Saturday 5 o'clock to like Saturday 12 at night. Like just this community of they're Latino. They're definitely from South America, from some location. Just giving it their all, playing like the 5 to 10 games of volleyball going on simultaneously. So I got to give it to them because pandemic or no pandemic, they were like, nah, we work hard all week. We're gonna go spend our weekend having fun playing volleyball. I mean,
we also love any sport that you could be outside, you drop the tarps off, and you can drink while you play. Volleyball fits those descriptions. Yeah. Softball is big too because you can just crank beers and hit a softball. which is what we love doing. It's mostly the Caribbean Latinos, like South Americans. They're more into soccer, because Dominicans and Puerto Ricans don't really play soccer. It's more baseball, volleyball, basketball, and South America. That's where you get soccer.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I've been wondering about this
Mexico as well.
for a
Soccer.
long time. Yeah, and I was like, why are these guys going in on volleyball? And they go in on volleyball, like the whole family's
hell
out.
yeah.
Like I'm talking about adult grown men playing volleyball on cement and diving to get to get the ball. It's insane shit.
There's a beach called Orchard Beach. Are you familiar with it?
I'm not. No.
Bronx. And there's a nickname for it. First of all, people go there. There's people playing volleyball all the time on that beach. But there's a nickname for it called Chocha Beach. Are you aware what that means?
I don't know I know. I've heard the
Vagina.
expression.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you could. That's what it's nicknamed. So you could just. That's all you need to know. I don't need to say anymore.
Wait,
Chocha Beach.
No, I need to know more. Why? How did it get bestowed this nickname?
Well, because for several reasons. One, the women are barely. I mean, if you see a full bathing suit on a woman, swimsuit, that's a rarity. They're out there.
This is in the Bronx.
This is in the Bronx. And number two, men go there to try to get laid
On the
So-
beach.
on the beach. Most times at the beach. Right there.
How did this?
It's great.
This just sounds.
Well, I
fantastic.
mean, it's great when if you're in that mood. It's
You're in an amorous mood.
right.
I guess
the
this
90s
is the place
was
to go.
notorious. Yeah.
That's insane. I didn't know that.
There's also like crazy concerts there too, like legit people, like fucking Hall & Oates or something. Go play at Orchard Beach, but then you got the fucking goons just getting after it.
Very interesting.
But yeah. So we love volleyball. To cut back.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I didn't know this, but yeah. No, it's interesting seeing that you're coming back and seeing the city that you left, and you left it in a bad time. Like it's kind of insane. Like a lot of stuff has happened since you've gone, so it's got to be an experience to come back and just be walking around.
It's just wild. I do like that there's still people in the street, but it's definitely not as much as before. Nothing is really open. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and it's like I saw recently on the news or somewhere, like Broadway. Broadway is not opening.
To
They're not
the fall.
till like 2020. Yeah, till
Fall 20.
yeah. It's like how is that possible? Like, I don't even know if Broadway can reopen. I mean, like you think about the money that's spent to keep Broadway alive and go well over a year. That would be more than a year of being closed.
What do you do if you're a musical theater actor?
You've lost a year.
What do you do if director, writer?
I mean, writers
sucks.
can write. I mean, hopefully
Oh, yeah.
they got a nice book of like a bunch of scripts that they've banged out. But you're an actor or a musician. Like I have a friend who's a musician, and I say musician, like he's a gig musician. Like he does weddings, he does this, he does that. He is not working. Who knows when will he be able to work? And there's lots of jobs where it's like, yeah, there's maybe no real ideas as to when they're gonna
Training
return.
instructor, like exercise.
Yoga, personal trainers, yoga instructors.
They've been hit hard too.
I just look on my street. On my street, there's a dance studio that's closed. There's a Pilates studio that's closed. And that's just one road within eyesight of my front door. So that's like, I times that by 10.
Right. So the gyms have reopened, but there's no classes. There's no group classes.
Correct. And
So
that's
killer.
And I mean, in New York, I think there's just so much class type activities,
Yeah, I
boxing
used
classes.
to love those.
Yeah, you were a big proponent of them.
I went to like 5 a week.
Yeah, so those are all gone, and all those teachers. I mean, I don't know what you're gonna teach online, but my thing is like with teaching online is I can go on YouTube and watch a free
Yeah,
yoga
I'm not
class.
gonna pay for fucking a yoga. Ain't to me.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Just
like,
get one on YouTube.
and it'll be very good. It'll be
Yeah.
just as good as your some of these yoga classes they get pricey.
Yeah. No, if you're not fully advanced yoga, and I went to some yoga classes where there's some people that are really good at it, and we're talking like headstands. They're sick. But like if you're not that level, why are you paying for an advanced instructor over the internet? Just like you said, just fucking Google it and just find a class. You'll be good.
So, long story short, city is heading in a better direction, but I think you're right in it that who knows when it's going to get to a point where you can take advantage of all of the positive aspects of the city. Now, before we switch gears, one thing I'm curious to see what you think is that, like I was talking to Drew, one benefit that he sees from the changes is the fact that like a lot of the events you might want to do you have to RSVP, which is kind of interesting. Like he's like I love the museums now because he's like I can just go on the website, like reserve a time slot. There's not going to be anyone. It's not going to be overcrowded. Like you got to plan in advance. That's kind of a cool feature. Like I think I would like that if that continued.
That's right. That's cool because a museum is a place that you don't want to be crowded. Whereas if you go to a concert, you want the energy from the crowd. You want a lot of people. Museum, you kind of want your space. So that's an unintended, I would say, benefit.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. What are some of the other things going on in like the world that we should talk about?
I got something.
Okay.
And it's a hat tip to you as well. Tip of the cap, Graham Hancock.
Oh,
I've this whole entire week I've been deep diving into Graham Hancock.
dude, he will tickle the brain.
He does.
So go ahead.
It's he's with this guy. What's the Randall guy's last name? He's like a pseudo Graham. I shouldn't say that because Graham Hancock hates that word, pseudoscientist. But
Yes, I know who you're talking
Randall
about.
something. He's not an actual geologist, but he's like a geology historian or something like that.
Yeah, I would call him like he is a self-taught geologist
Correct. Yeah.
that's put in the hours, so like his opinion is valuable.
Correct. So him and Graham Hancock are. I'm not gonna say they convinced me, but they kind of changed a lot of what I thought because we talk about the show all the time, Ancient Aliens, which I finally got you to watch, which you do like.
I liked it. Yes.
I kind of was leaning more toward that as our human origins, where we were not just that we were helped by aliens or like Greys or ET. Like that's not what I mean. I mean, at some point we took direction from interdimensional beings. At some point, I really believe that. But these guys, maybe that's a little one step further because maybe we had all this already and it just got wiped away, is what they're saying. We're capable of all these advancements. Didn't need help because we had an advanced civilization that just got buried under a flood. That's wild to me.
Yeah. So for those who haven't listened, these two guys have been on together.
Several, like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah,
Joe
they've been on the
Rogan's-
Joe Rogan show, and what's interesting, I believe Joe Rogan was the one that introduced them together.
Yeah. Loves both of them, yeah.
And like the long story short is that Graham Hancock, the basis of a lot of his books, because he's written a couple books. One book I think we mentioned is called Fingerprint of the Gods.
That's the main one, yeah.
Yeah, is his idea or what he's trying to prove is that there was an advanced human culture that predates or goes back much further. In essence, he believes that human culture is much older than we like to believe. Right? I think the common number that gets thrown around, and I could be really wrong, but I think it's like 10,000 years.
I think it's like 600
Okay.
to 12,000.
So that's like like scientists and historians like to throw that number as like this is the earliest human advanced civilization. And with Graham Hancock, his view based off of it's not pulled from his head. It's like
It's been everywhere in the world.
Yeah, they've looked at certain data.
Heavy research.
Yeah, and this is a conclusion, which is not shared by just him, but shared by other people, is that like there was an advanced human society that goes back way older, and they've looked at different archaeological locations that also support this idea that they have ruins that are much older than, let's say, this 11,000 or 12,000 years.
Yeah, like the Sphinx is a major point of contention
yes,
because the most prominent Egyptian archaeologist hates, like he just despises both of them because he's like, no, the Sphinx started this time and this is, but then there's like watermarks on the Sphinx that predate the date that the Egyptian archaeologist is contending. So
yeah,
it's interesting.
So like with him, his whole idea is like there was this advanced society that has seeded, or maybe the seed of a lot of these other civilizations that we know of. And he part of, you have to read his books to kind of fully understand his thinking. But one of the things he points out is that there are certain pictographic images and stories in a lot of cultures that are very spread out in the world. And if you there's one character, and I believe he brings this up on Joe Rogan, is of this like serpent god, and there's a certain image of him depicted in, let's say, in like Aztec ruins, and the same image is found, let's say, in like Indonesia, and like again in somewhere in the Middle East, right? Like very similar, where even you or I just looking at it would be like, that looks pretty much the same. And like part of his belief is that there may have been this society that sent out almost like missionaries throughout the world to spread culture and technology advancement. So yeah, that's one of the theories they talk about. But did you also get the cataclysm? Because they talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that would also explain why a lot of the origin stories of all the cultures are very similar. Flood, a lot of the gods, a lot of, like you said, the imagery, the iconography, like all the structures that they built are similar, and it's because we all came from that one civilization. But they talk about that one like it's a major apocalyptic event. That's, I believe they narrowed in on a comet or an asteroid that first caused it. I could be wrong on that, but I think
No, you're right.
I think that's right.
Correct.
And for like a really long time, we're talking like hundreds of years, humans survived an Earth that was just on fire and flooding. That's wild. Like we survived basically the apocalypse, and fascinating because think about walking around and seeing like firestorms, like shit shooting all around the sky. That's the image I got. It's like, imagine walking out of your like wherever lodging or cave you're in, and you just see like fireballs going everywhere. You see thunder, you see tornadoes and hurricanes and tidal waves. That's what was happening. So somehow humans survived that really long time of this just major apocalyptic event that washed away most of the civilization.
Yeah, I'm trying to find. There's this one Native American story, and I don't know if I can find it. It's in the book. If you read Fingerprint of the Gods, I believe it's that book. But they talk about, so with this, and this is kind of where Graham Hancock meets the other guy. The other guy's like kind of his whole shtick is geography, and they found in America. I think this is like the origin of this cataclysm.
North America, yeah.
Yeah, happened in North America, and they can, based on certain studies, they've determined like there's huge swaths of land where if you dig deep, there's like the residual remains of what would look like fire burning in ash. And there's a Native American story that he points to in one of his books where this is where we're going, like ancient aliens territory, where
at some point the two merge.
Yeah, it's like where they talk about how like there's like this Native American story passed down of like this end of the world event taking place, and like the sky raining down fire, and people like having to like, it's almost like the story of the flood in the Bible, like having to, like, the waters rising and flooding, and like you're hearing the story, and it's like if you were to take the story and then read like the biblical account of the flood, you're like, whoa, this is the same exact story. which is also very similar to like a Babylonian story. So yeah, it's just it's. I'm glad you dug into him a little bit.
Interesting. And then he gets to another major component of it is he truly believes that hallucinogens and psychedelics had a very strong impact on human civilization, especially in set.
Did you listen to when he talked about the Aztec ruler?
Don't recall that.
Okay, so yeah, this episode is just gonna be weird. We're just gonna talk about this is gonna be a buffet of just random stuff. Um, so this is an interesting episode. I think this is just with Graham Hancock and Joe Rogan. They're talking about psychedelics. We've talked about psychedelics here before, and they talk about I think ayahuasca, for example.
That's
And-
the main one that they talk about.
Yeah. And
Which is DMT, if I'm correct.
yeah, so ayahuasca is two components. It's DMT, and then there's another chemical from another plant that is supposed to elongate the
See.
DMT experience. So DMT is usually like maybe a few minutes, and then with this ancient recipe that can last hours. So the one thing they talk about that's really interesting is they talk about how when Graham Hancock has his ayahuasca experience, he sees a goddess,
I do remember this now.
right?
Yes.
Like a serpent goddess. The goddess is talking to him and communicating. And if you recall from that episode, he was saying that had been abusing marijuana.
Right.
Remember?
He called it the green bitch.
Yeah. And which it can't it can be that. And how the goddess kind of was like telling him like, hey, like this is you gotta straighten shit out. And then somehow they segue into goddesses and spirits and things like that. Because you know when it comes to DMT and ayahuasca, you got to ask yourself, or hallucinogens in general, when you see something, and with some of these hallucinogens, there's a communication that takes place. Who are you communicating? What are you communicating? Is it a spirit? Is it a sentient being, or is it a hallucination?
I think it's the thing that connects all of us. It's something in our brains that's uniform across all of humanity gets unlocked. Go on ayahuasca trips.
So they talk about in this episode that I would tend to kind of probably agree with that, but they talk about how like the possession a little bit, and they talk about how I'm trying to see if I can recall this episode. They talk about this ancient, they talk about the Aztec, and they talk about how there was this one god, and how they consumed like this thing, like a hallucinogen, and how the god of the Aztecs was a bloodthirsty god. And they were talking about how, but he was trying to say how, what if these things, these hallucinogens, were in a sense a way to communicate, and how in this society, like they're kind of asking, like, what happened to the Aztecs? Like when the conquistadors came, someone may disagree, but from what I've heard, the native inhabitants of South America saw the conquistadors as a godsend. They were being kidnapped and offered as sacrifices by the Aztecs, right? The Aztecs were not hunting their own people. They were hunting other people. Their blood sacrifice. They talked how like they saw the Aztecs as possessed by this deity, bloodthirsty. And Graham Hancock kind of wonders, like, well, what if, like, you open up a door and there's these beings on the other side, and what if the reason why some of these cultures are a certain way is because there's a certain being that kind of begins to inhabit them, that world, and shape it to what it wants or what it needs. If you've got a bloodthirsty deity
creepy.
on the other end, and he's like, give me souls, what kind of society is going to come out? A bloodthirsty society. I diverge.
So it's instead of getting sacrificed to the blood god, they just got raped and ravaged by the white man.
Hey, the other people, they were pretty happy about it. I mean, they weren't. It's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. You say, oh, you know what? Go fuck up the Aztecs for us, please. They're killing us. and then they say, all right, well, we're gonna stick around and fuck up everyone else. So,
I see.
yeah,
The
not
old switcheroo.
not great. You know, it's like invite me into your home, and then let me empty out the fridge.
Yeah, exactly. But there's an Ancient Aliens episode specifically on sacrifice, and they do talk about Aztec sacrifice. You should check that out.
I'll have to watch it.
Great. The
It-
show is great. You just learn so much.
It's good. I mean, I'll be honest with you. It was very surprising when you and I watched it like last weekend. You get more data than I think any 50 to an hour show I've ever watched. Like you
So
sit
much.
there and you're like, dude, this is a long episode. They throw a lot at you. Like whether you believe it or not, it's like they make their case. You
There's a
know?
lot of historical fact in it too.
Yeah.
I would say a lot of it is.
Yeah, it's when you start to jump down that rabbit hole, it gets real weird. And you know, my biggest takeaway watching that show with you is just how vast the world is, history is, and there's just so much mystery that like anyone who says that they understand what's going on or what went on is just out of their fucking mind.
They don't know dick. Right.
No way.
But think about all the shows about mysteries and the unknown that just exist in the world. There's might be hundreds of them. So like there's just so many mysteries and things we don't know. Deep sea, I think we talked about the deep sea. We don't know shit about the deep sea. Nothing. James Cameron might. Oh, I have a good story. James Cameron, I just found out. I think Rob Lowe told the story. Rob Lowe's pretty cool, actually. I didn't know he was that cool. But then I listened to a podcast with him. Rob Lowe told the story of the recently deceased Bill Paxton. Bill Paxton and Cameron were buddies. And James Cameron invited Bill Paxton to eat lunch with him in his little pod, in his little like deep sea pod, on the deck of the Titanic. So Bill Paxton and James Cameron dove to the Titanic wreckage, docked that little ship that he has, ate lunch, came back up to the water, the surface, and you know what had happened while they were down there eating?
No idea.
9/11. They missed 9/11 because they were eating lunch on the fucking deck of the Titanic. Insane.
That's another level. Yeah. That's so.
So
Can you imagine that? You
Yeah.
come up after having that's like that could be a memory you'll cherish the rest of your
yeah,
life,
they missed the whole thing.
and then you have another memory of a horrible event.
That's wild. Yeah.
Because that's got to be such not a romantic, but yeah, like a magical experience. You know, to be like I'm spending my lunch. This is a little piece of
on
history.
the Titanic, literally. Yeah.
That's so crazy. Yeah, it's just a really weird world that you know people say, oh, it's a weird world that we live in now. It's like, no, man, the world is weird. It's never
up.
not been weird. And it's kind of crazy just how time washes away mysteries and then somehow appear later on. Like I was thinking about like some in Ancient Aliens, for example, like they'll bring up cultures. Ancient cultures that you might not have ever heard about, but also cultures that were lost in time. And that to me is also pretty mysterious, just how massive cultures, like massive civilizations can exist and then
It's scrubbed away.
just disappear. And then like just a generation later or 2 generations later, like not a vast amount of time, the memory of them will be gone. Like it'll just fade as if they never existed. And that to me is just like, because I know that is possible, anything to me is on the table because it's just like, who knows? Like someone wants to say like civilization's only been 10,000 years. It's like we thought up until recently that Troy wasn't a real place. So what other like things that are in our books that are considered like mythology will one day we be like, oh yeah, that actually that was real. We're wrong. I'm sorry. You know, it's
That's
kind of crazy.
That's one of the major components of Ancient Aliens. Is the myths were just the ancient people's way of describing things that they couldn't describe. Those are the gods.
Yeah, we watched the episode about. Well, we were talking. The one episode we watched with the Indian like the some of the gods of India, of ancient India. Um, that was pretty. Have you heard of a religion called Falun Dafa?
Familiar with that.
So randomly, if you used to go in front of the Chinese consulate and not the Chinese consulate, but where you would get a visa, there would usually be people, practitioners of Falun Dafa, out there. It's like kind of like a banned religion, China. But one thing that's interesting is if you read some of their text from one of their masters, he talks about how like the world has had many epochs and that civilization has come, been destroyed, and then rebooted over and over and over and over again. And that like at one point like that civilization may have been very, very advanced, and then due to some cataclysm, just was wiped off the planet. And that's just like some rand. This is someone saying that, and you find that belief in a lot of different areas. So that's why the whole ancient aliens thing to me, I'm like, yeah, there's some viability there because a lot of people already believe that.
Doesn't take much. Not that much of a reach. That's what people think. Oh, that's out there. It's not. Really, is it?
How far out there people believe, and I'm not even saying this in a disrespectful way, but you believe in God and you believe in certain religions. You believe in that. What's the leap? You know what I mean? Like you already believe in something that might be difficult to believe, or has a supernatural bent. So like I always find that very very strange when people put like
Because it flies in the face of it. That's
yeah,
why. But
yes and no.
yes and no, because
Not
a
really.
lot of religion is intertwined with this as well.
If you found out that Jesus, let's say, was actually, I mean, you already know if you believe in the Bible, he's not of this world, right? His bloodline is divine and human. What is divine? What is that? What I don't know. And like, what is the leap if you found out? Oh yeah, he's half from this ancient civilization that's from another world. You know what I mean? Like that to me, as like a normal human mind, is like okay, yeah, that weird, like that, not a stretch. So
It's not at all.
I just find that strange when people get kind of like they start to draw those
Yeah,
lines.
but really, you got some whack jobs there. That's religion. We shouldn't be taking any cues from organized religion.
But I mean, dude, the
The
ancient
theology of it, yes.
but the ancient alien stuff. I mean, even scientists they don't buy that. You know what I mean? Those people looked at crackpots. Do you think what's the guy, the real like the famous talking head that's the scientist?
My boy Giorgio Tsoukalos.
No. That's yes, that's the ancient aliens guy. But like, do you think that who's the guy who teaches like about the universe? Black guy. On Joe Rogan.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yes. Do you think that he sees like ancient aliens and those people as like reputable purveyors of knowledge? I think he looks at them as like conspiracy theorists.
I would say he's not down with the conclusions they make, but he's definitely open to like the universal talk that they go into.
Okay.
But he's coming from the physicist angle, so he wants equations.
Okay.
He doesn't want hypothesis, or no, I shouldn't say he's making hypothesis too. He doesn't want like abstract. He wants, if it's not a mathematical formula, he's not fucking with it.
Get out of my way.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. One of my biggest hopes, and I guess one of my biggest fears, is that in my lifetime, some epic mystery will unfold and will be revealed.
Well, the military kind of just admitted recently that UFOs are out there.
Ooh.
They did, but
How do you feel about that when you hear that?
excited.
One thing to watch Ancient Aliens on TV, and another thing to be like, yeah, there's something.
Excited, man. But I think it goes back to the 90s, and the plot of the X-Files was government knows that this is a threat. Because in the X-Files, not to ruin it, I mean, you haven't watched the X-Files yet.
Dude, this is like years and years.
Suck
you
it. Suck
could
my
say
dick.
whatever you
Yeah.
want at this point. It's
Fuck
like the
that.
90s. When was the X-Files out? The 90s, right?
90s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine.
So the plot is the government is purposely covering it up because the aliens are hostile. And they don't want everyone to know because if everyone knows, there's global panic and it's just pure chaos. So I don't know, man. If they're, I don't think they'll be hostile. I mean, but what if they are? And I think the government knows the deep level government.
Yeah.
The men in black, of course, that we talk about from time to time here. They know. They just don't want everyone else to know. I think that's clear. But we're getting to the point where there's just so much information out there that they have to kind of admit that they're not saying it's aliens, they're just saying that's a ship that we don't know what the hell it is.
Yeah.
And it's out there.
Yeah, I mean, they stick to the line of like UFO, unidentified flying object. They don't. Yeah.
You're not talking about extraterrestrials. Though.
Well, and I think I wonder, as you were saying that, I wonder if part of this release is the fact that like the government's not going to be able to have a stranglehold on space travel any longer.
Your boy Elon Musk is putting an end to that one.
Yeah. So, and I mean, a lot of these guys are trying. Like Bezos, I didn't realize he has a company that's about space travel. There's a lot of people.
He has a lot of money for it.
So, like, if this stuff is happening, eventually it's gonna be in the world knowledge. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not gonna be able to really control what do they say when it comes to that? Control the message or control the data flow. Like, the government is losing a stranglehold on that. But it's a lot of what's true is like a lot of scientists, you know, when they speculate about extraterrestrial life is like that is a serious talk of like what is the likelihood that they're not like I think even Stephen Hawking said it at some point. It might not be a good thing for us to stumble to find alien life or for them to find us. Like it might not be in our best interest. And I think there's some truth to that. Like if you think about it.
I agree.
Like imagine if the conquistadors and how the conquistadors treated the South Americans. There's nothing saying that an alien civilization would not see us in the same light.
That part is a little alarming. Imagine getting a rod shoved up your hoop from an alien. You don't want that. No one wants that.
I don't want that from anyone, man. I don't need to be an alien. At that point, I don't
it could
care.
be worse than
I don't care whose hands on the whose hands on the stake.
Yeah, it could be worse than what the Spaniards did. So yeah, there is an element of concern there, but I'd like to think more positive side. The universal interdimensional beings, good.
Well, I mean, it's like I'm gonna bring up the Avengers first. Not your. But there was one aspect that I thought was interesting. Was like something happened on Earth, and then one of the characters kind of said, "You know, you've now put a target. Like you've now told the universe, i.e., these other civilizations, that you are now ready for another level of warfare. Like you're now on the universe stage now. Like you are an agent. You're a threat. Like you could be a threat. You could be, you know, you're not in the backwaters anymore. Like you've moved up. You've leveled up.
You could potentially destroy an entire planet.
Yeah, you could do something. And I'm, you know, it's you got to wonder. It's if there's one civilization or one interdimensional being, then there's a good chance there's many different.
Yeah.
And who knows? One might have one relationship with you. Other ones might have a very different.
Star Trek. There's the Klingons are kind of rough and tumble. They're more visceral and carnal. They're angry. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah, they're like a violent, warring type civilization.
And then you have like the Bajorans, or the Vulcans, who are peaceful and knowledge based and philosophical. So I think that's, if I were to put a blanket over the universe, I think there's more than one, and they have personalities like we all do.
What if, because with Ancient Aliens, one of the big things that they talk about is this idea that human beings were seeded, that our genesis is not of this world, right? That we owe who we are to some degree to another advanced civilization. And I kind of think it'd be interesting. It's like, you know, so their whole mission is to find the civilization. And what if, like, we come in contact with another extraterrestrial life and they also can't solve the mystery though. They're like, yeah, we know that this agent, this group made you who you are, but no one are no one knows. That'd be kind of an interesting
Yeah, it
little
would be
plot line.
disappointing though.
Course, but it's like that's the beauty I think of conspiracy and stuff like that is that there's never an end to it. It always gets deeper. Never.
Imagine if a spaceship lands in America, and then we're finally going to get the answers, and they were like, we don't know shit.
We came here looking for answers.
Yeah.
Our
That
books
would be
told you-
comical. That would be
Oh.
humorous, actually.
It'd be great. It'd be so. And I think that to me, I think that's a very realistic outcome. I think it'd just be like we're gonna meet alien life and all those answers that we're seeking. We're gonna find out we have no answers and just more questions.
Know where you get the answers? I think Graham Hancock talks about this too. 2 ways. Psychedelics help you. They don't give you the answer straight up, but they guide you. Death. Death. I think we've talked about this here in this very room. Death is not. There's nothing final about death. It just become part of the universe afterwards. I think that's where you get those concrete answers. You're in it. You're in the life force at that point.
Well, it's like, yeah, what if death is we talked about this I think it was the first couple episodes.
Yeah, because sorry to interrupt, but it's because I think Graham Hancock puts it in the viewpoint of one of the ancient civilizations. I forget if it's Inca, Maya, one of those. They stopped fearing death after they were consuming all this ayahuasca and stuff. They realized that death is not to be feared, and not that they welcomed it, but they lived their life fully, not fearing death, because they knew when they die, that's when they're gonna go into the stars.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And psychedelics help them. Yeah, psychedelics help them reach that conclusion.
Dude, do you know that in Orlando, we talk about this. In Orlando, you can do ayahuasca. There's an ayahuasca
I should do that.
location. You
I
should reach
need
out
to.
to them. I mean,
I'll
it's
definitely do that.
It's not far from of all places to be located.
That's
It's
wild.
not far. Yeah, I haven't done a hallucinogen quite some time. Kind of they frighten me. It's like I have immense respect for them. So I'm like, I think about it and I'm like,
I don't want to do acid. You know my acid story.
Yeah, well,
not doing acid
you talked
anymore.
about it. No,
But
I don't feel like you get the same amount.
It's
of
totally
like,
different. Yeah.
You get more of a sensational experience, but I don't think you get the next day. You're not going to be like rehashing something that was like quote unquote revealed to you while you were under that influence of substance.
Not learning anything. What am I?
Maybe I mean, dude, for you, reach out to the ayahuasca and see if they're. I mean, with what's going on with COVID, they might not be giving it out, but maybe they are. I mean, that would be probably a very worthwhile experience.
Especially after researching and listening to all these videos. These episodes are older, so you get to watch the video.
Yeah.
Cool. Definitely interested in.
Because I mean, there's so many people, especially with ayahuasca specifically. There's so many people who would not expect to have taken it, and who have had very good experience. That I think it's probably if you have the right mindset for hallucinogen. In my mind, the right mindset is like I have that I want to work through and help me. I haven't heard of any like. When I say bad, I mean bad as in like there was nothing valuable that came. It might have been like a very traumatic experience, but like I've never seen or heard of anyone who like had a traumatic experience and then the next day was like that was complete waste. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like having a near-death experience where you're like, all right, this was horrible. I would never want it to happen again, but going forward, I'm going to live my life different.
I think most people come out differently on the other side of the ayahuasca periods.
Yeah.
But long story short, I'm down. Definitely do that if it's available.
Yeah, find out because if it is, I might. I mean, if $20 I can fly to Orlando, I might go out
So
there
cheap.
for Thanksgiving, man.
Awesome.
Find out, man. I have a week off for Thanksgiving. I might be ended up in Orlando doing
Oh, yeah.
ayahuasca. Yes.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
Wait, I wanted to circle back to one other point, but
About
we're
what?
whizzing around here. We're buzzing.
Yeah, we really are.
Yeah. So okay, yeah, I found it. So there's a now. Remember how I said religion and everything we've talked about, ancient civilizations, they all connect. There's a writer that is trying to do that. He's trying to. He wrote a book, Brian Marusaku,
Okay.
Greek, and he wrote a book called The Immortal Key, and the premise is Christianity was founded on psychedelics because the wine and the beer that they were drinking all had all these hallucinogen properties in it. That's why Christianity spread out the way it did, because people were learning things from having these ceremonies, these dedicated ceremonies. Crazy.
Yeah, I believe that. I mean, I'm not. That wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I think even with the Hebrew religion, there's like some belief that they took like Kabbalah and stuff like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Like they took a lot of hallucinogens. Like you got to think the in Soma. Soma is a no one knows what the recipe was, but Soma was believed to have been made with a hallucinogenic mushroom. The Aztecs took something. I don't know what it was called, but I think it was
They all
believed to
did.
be
The
made.
Native Americans, huge.
Native Americans took stuff. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Like none of that would surprise me. I wouldn't be like if someone said tomorrow, "Oh yeah, like these people were taking this." I would say, "Okay." My question would be, where did the information come from? Got from the
See, a lot of that, I was just going to ask you, why do you think they're hiding that? Why wouldn't that just be, oh, this is how we discovered this part, and they just write it down and record it? It's somehow hidden. It's like taboo to be like, hey, we believe this because we all trip together, and that's what we believe.
See, I don't know. I think my view is I don't think that there would be. You got to think about nowadays with Christian, not in is with most religions. These are not uniform bodies. Like there's the Catholic Church that it's its own thing, but like there are so many denominations and groups that are not connected, and in many ways are in complete disagreement with each other. So I don't think like of like this is like the conspiracy, and like to him without reading his book or about it, like I can't gather his like what he makes his claim about. But I wouldn't like I don't know. I think sometimes with a lot of these religions, especially with I'm not say especially with Christianity as in with a lot of them is that if you read certain text, there's certain things that the people writing the text, even ancient people, they assume you know certain things already. Like they don't explain everything out because they're like, "Oh, but like you already know this. Like I'm not going to explain this detail out." Like for example, this is just me like making shit up right now. But like imagine if I don't know, with like I don't know, with Judaism. They have a lot of ceremonies. Like Judaism has so many different religions and so many different sacraments and what. Like what if one of those sacraments was like you burn incense or something? Like I think they've even heard this with Christianity that like marijuana seeds were part of the that.
Probably.
Well, I mean, I think long story short is that I think sometimes certain things are assumed that the person reading it knows, and that we don't know it
That's why they didn't expressly state it.
in certain aspects. I don't know in this particular case if that's
Probably.
true.
That's true. I
But
can
I
buy
think
that.
a lot of different religions, or even just when you read something like a history, like if you read like a history text that's 2,000 years old, there's a lot of times where you're like, I don't understand something here because like there's something being lost in
Common
translation.
knowledge then.
Yeah, it was assumed like yeah, like you know that this dynamic existed. So that might be part of it. I don't know, man. There's a lot of text on the ancient. That
And this guy says that the sacrament of the Eucharist was a much originally.
it might have been. I mean, that's the thing with Christianity. Like, if someone said something about like Israel, not Israel, with like Judaism, it's easier for me because Judaism is very old. Like, you're going into the archaic past. So there's all kinds of shit. Like, that's why like Kabbalah and all these interesting, different, strange thinkings of like different Jewish sects. it's a very old. Like it goes back
Yes.
to a history we don't really can't even really we don't know. Like we're talking about ancient times. Whereas with Christianity, its origins are not that ancient. Like they're ancient, but they're not that ancient.
Certainly not the level of Judaism.
1,000 years. I mean, Judaism might go back. I don't know,
Mad far.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9,000. Who knows? But yeah, I think hallucinogens are a piece of the puzzle of a lot of ancient.
I'm on board with that.
Like there's one.
And I think that ties into what we were earlier. That is why you find some guidance when you do when you're right trip.
But I guess my question comes back to you is that where is the information?
I think it's inside of us.
That's the question, right?
It's not it's not external, I would say.
I mean, if you take DMT and you see this creature come talking to you, who's that creature? Is that coming from inside?
It's in a part of our brain that we can't reach without it.
Is that creature a sentient being that
That's
lives in your brain? Almost like a parasite?
That's hard. You just rocked me there.
Right? That's like somehow it entered our genetics system, and as we reproduce, like every time we reproduce, we create this entity that lives in the child's brain, dormant, hiding.
Ooh, let me gather myself here.
Then maybe while you're gathering, then maybe it's like all of these ancient aliens. Really, they didn't disappear, but they merged with us.
Just said some wild shit there. I don't even know how to respond to that last part, but let me try. Well, we did watch the episode where they said they kind of messed with our genetic code.
Yeah.
So, but I think this goes back to my own personal theory that I'm working on. I think we're all one organism. So every living thing is connected. Animal, plant, person, human. We're all connected. So we share traits. We literally share atoms with all these things. And at the origin is the creation of the universe. Also one giant organism, which we're all kind of atoms in the universal body. Now, where that creature comes from, I think if I'm not mistaken, it almost appears the same to a lot of people. It's almost the same deity that you're kind of communing with. It's in most instances. It's similar, if anything. And I think that comes back to the genesis of us. I think because we're all connected, we have parts of our brain and our that have that ability in us, and it just takes certain, I would say, instruments to unlock that. That's what things like DMT and ayahuasca do. So I think that goddess that Graham Hancock was talking about was once a sentient being, but I don't think it currently is. Or maybe. What am I to say?
Whoa. We go back there for 6
Yeah.
What do you mean? That it was once a sentient being, but it's no longer. So what does that mean?
It was one of the first living things.
And we're like are you saying then that this creature that existed at one point, since we're all connected, we're almost seeing like a residual memory of it, like a manifestation of it?
Yeah.
Or are you saying that since we're all connected and tying back into the dying thing is that when you die you kind of transcend? Are you saying that we're seeing like this creature transcended form?
I think to touch on the death point, I think when you're in that hallucinogenic state, I think you see a preview of what your life is going to be after you die. Snippet. So, but as far as the being itself, I think it's not just the only one. It's probably among several. Like, just think about the first living things that were ever existed in the entire universe, not just Earth. I think they're part of that, and because we're all connected, it's like going back in like a family photo album. You go all the way back, and you're like, who the hell is that we all came from that one person. So it's almost like a tree. It's like a tree. It's like a family tree. The entire universe is a family tree, starting with the origin.
Yeah, they I would like to do significantly.
Badly,
Right, like that.
I want to see these things.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, like that, it brings up a good question. It's like, yeah, it's like what you said has just as much validity as anything else. Like, is it in someone's head? Is it nation? Is it that these particular chemicals create this particular image in every human being's mind? Is it? Are you communing with something else, a sentient being? Are you seeing like what you're saying? You're seeing the residual memory of an ancient species, creature, whatever you want to call it. Really, it's anyone. Yes, as to what that.
That's the fun part about being like, if you have an interest in this type of thing, so many possibilities.
Yeah, it's kind of a scary thing too, because it's. I think when we were watching Ancient Aliens, I asked you the question. It's like, what's the point digging into
It's a
this
good question to ask, though.
in the rabbit hole? Because you're like, all right, I'm not going to solve this mystery. But on the other hand, this mystery seems like if this is up for debate, it's very important because it's like it's answering determines what existence. It's like it's equivalent to like a lot of people look at religions as like opt into them or you opt out. But like if there is a truth and there are consequences in that truth, isn't it important to know what that truth is, right? It's like just to use Christianity. I'm not poking fun, but like if Christianity is true and there's a heaven and a hell, that truth is very important because there's ramifications to that choice. That's what I find like when I watch like the Ancient Aliens. I'm like, all right, if this stuff is true, it's almost like a drug because it's like I want to know because it's kind of important that I know, but it's such a deep hole that like you're probably never gonna know. It's like ignorance is bliss, like the quote with the Matrix.
But it is a fun subject to get into.
Oh,
And
dude, it's super fun.
And I think it's important. There's significant importance in it. It's just that, I mean, honestly, in your and Self's lifetime, there's no way we'll get fucking way. But
I don't know, man. I don't think we're gonna get all the answers, but I do think I have a feeling that's all it is. But I think in our lifetime there are gonna be some things that dramatically change. Some revelations that appear that like call into question like a lot.
this we're in it right now. This is the start pandemic. This is the start of the reset of the cycle.
Did I tell you? Did we talk about this on the podcast? You have a good memory. Henry Chan and book.
Yes, I believe so. He went into the mountains.
So I think we talked about this in the earlier episodes, but there was like a conversation I had with a good friend of mine, and he was talking about something he had read, and just to try to summarize in a tagline, it was just that like periodically there are these ebbs and flows of society, and like at certain epochs, certain transitional points, you're due for something.
I would call it a cycle.
Yeah,
It's a cycle.
Correct. A new cycle, a big change. And in the book, the author had said that like he believed that 2020 was going to be the beginning of one of those cycle changes. And already in 2020, obviously a lot of, crazy stuff has happened. So who knows?
I believe that. I believe we're refreshing, fresh a reboot right now. But the last event of the refresh, that's where you get the cataclysm.
Refreshes are never good. That's why all you can do is you have to like prepare for the worst case scenarios, fortify yourself to the best of your abilities. Yeah.
So be prepared for that, people. The last part of the refresh is not pleasant.
Yeah, this is true. I mean, that's that's why you got to wonder sometimes. It's like what's a better trade? Stability and ignorance or truth and pain? And that's true of like take it we can take it at a more of a micro level. Like it's like relationships. Like you want to know if a woman was cheating on you?
That's a hard one. I would personally.
It's a tough one because obviously I think everyone would say I would want to know, but then it's like what if your day-to-day life was happy? Like you were in love, you're having this joyful life, everything's going well, you have this beautiful, let's say, wife at this time, and
Yeah, but she's banging some other
but
cocksucker, and I hate that.
she's maintaining the let's say the everything is good. You feel like she's giving you all of her time, all of her love. You felt no lag in that marital relationship. Would you really want to know? Because then all of that goes away. Your life is turned upside down.
True. Um,
So while you think about that,
I don't know, man. I still would want to know, but that's you raise some valid points there. Would it just be better just to never know and then end up growing old and dying? You were always with her. The family was great. You never know.
you were
That's
happy.
probably better for you, actually.
It's a tough one because like I'd be the same way because it's like the across the street no one knows these people. I don't really care, but the Pilates. Right? I found this out through my knowledge.
Ridgewood web of connections.
Yes, through my spiders, my little birds.
Heard a whisper.
And it was that there's nice Pilates studio, and been going on for years, run by a couple, and closed down. And was wondering, I was like, I wondered if it was due to just with the pandemic and whatnot. And I found out that this scenario had happened, that the owner had found out that his wife had been having a relationship with someone. And these people are older, like they probably have had a relationship for a long time. And he found out, and
An
now
affair, though. It was constant. No,
it was an affair. I don't know. It's tough. It's like very strange. We like the truth, but then we also hate. It's like when you ask someone, like, "Hey, like, tell me the truth.
a good point.
Confirm what you already believe."
Sometimes I don't want the truth. I'll tell you that. You know how hard it was for me in law school to look. One of the moments I hated, the grades came out, and everyone was like, "What? Did you check your grades?" Nope. Don't want to know, because in my head I could still get an A if I don't check. So it took me so long. I had to like psych myself up to fucking log in and look at my grades.
I'm the same way. I avoid that. Or some things I'll be like, if it's bad, someone will reach out to me.
Right.
Turn a blind eye toward it. Yeah, but it's just interesting. Like I don't know with a lot of these things. You gotta wonder if the world, if the people in the world are sometimes better not knowing than knowing.
That's a great way to come back to the alien talk. That's literally why they're withholding the information, because it's better. It is better for people to not know, because what do they say? Individuals are smart, but people are stupid. So it is better for just society's sake, for order, that no one knows about this.
Well,
But it's like you said, it's the catch-22, because I want to know. My natural curiosity wants to know.
and this changes the game. It's like person. If you're a person in general, you have beliefs, whether
Yeah.
they're religious or not, or whether you identify them as religious or not. You have beliefs. You have an idea of how the world works, how life is, and I kind of want to say that like no government has the right to allow you to live ignorantly, considering that you have one life. That knowledge might drastically change how you live it.
Tough one. That's a good question to pose, because everyone is going to say you want to know everything kind of information. Do you really?
I've thought about that with relationships. It's a big question. Like, would you know if someone cheated on you? What if they did it once and they never did it again? Like, would you want to know that? Like, I know a lot of women say yes, or Probably guys say yes.
I think most people would say yes. But do you know how many times? Probably. I mean, it's shitty to say that, but we all know it's true. Go fuck yourself if you don't really believe this. But it's true that you see every marriage out there. I guarantee you, that's happened at least with one of the partners.
It's a crazy. It's a
At
crazy,
least one time,
Yeah.
one of the two partners one time did something they weren't supposed to. I would say a good number of relationships that's happened.
Yeah, I think it's
I'm
especially if
close
they've
to the
been
majority.
together- Yeah, if they've been together for a long time, I almost want to say that that's yeah, of course. And I think maybe the difference between those relationships and sale is that there's a little bit more. I don't want to say flexibility, but there's the understanding that people are fucking. You're an animal to some degree, and actually, in under certain circumstances, you're more animal than not animal. So you better build in a little flexibility into that into the
Exactly.
rules and regs.
So was it you that said this? I might have seen it somewhere. It's just can't help you're attracted to. I think that was you. The way you're wired as a person, there's a certain type of thing that attracts you. It's different for everyone. And when someone comes along that's not your partner that checks all those boxes, like you said, that's when the carnal instincts kick in. It's hard to curb that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be. I think we talked about this at one point. Like Bon Jovi, for example, John Bon Jovi. I remember. I think my mom told me this. Someone told me this. It was like he in it, because he was a touring musician, famous, world renowned, right? Like if he wants to have sex, not a question of like what do I need to do to get this to happen. It's just like it's gonna be offered to him, right? It's like any athlete or musician, like I think across the board, like if you want to get laid, you're gonna get
Absolutely.
laid. You got to say no more than you have to actually try to. You don't have to do much work. I don't. Anyway, so for him, right here's a guy who's a family, who's a wife. Like I think he genuinely is like a family man. He is so strict. Like when he goes to like on tour, it's like hotel, show, hotel. There's no stop gaps. There's no room for that. For
Patient.
yes, for the DNA, the primal brain to get control. But that's like immense. Like that's an immense amount of effort he has to put in order to. So
And Andrew Dice Clay has a different take on that. He goes back in his heyday. He said, "You got till midnight because my dick's getting hard. It's gonna have to do something." So that's what he would say to his girlfriend. He was like, "If you're not here, you got till midnight to get here."
that's
It's the opposite of Bon Jovi.
yeah, it's correct.
He's like,
He's putting the clock is on.
it's getting wet at some point. So
the
yeah,
timer's set. Yeah, exactly. There is a deadline. You better meet the
yeah.
deadline.
If you're not here, it's getting wet some other way. So I'm giving you you're my number one choice. You're my girl, but I needs to satisfy this. He's a maniac, though. I love Andrew Dice Clay. He's
Well, I
ridiculous.
mean,
He's
can
just
you
part of the
imagine?
persona. Yeah.
Exactly. Like I would imagine there was a heavy flow of cocaine in his heyday.
Oh, dude.
80s, 70s, 80s, yeah, 80s. I was gonna ask you, like, do you ever think about like, talk about this relationships, kind of going in this direction? Like at our age, do you crave a relationship more or less? And I know this is kind of like a
Yeah.
loaded question. Like there's multiple levels to it. Where
One. I think I can answer for me personally.
yeah, I mean that's all you. can
Generally
do.
speaking, it's probably different. For me personally, yes. Only because when I was in my 20s, I mean, I was a madman.
Your 20s, you're
I was
out
a
there. I
madman.
mean, you're doing
Yeah.
stuff.
I was out there, and I didn't. There were so many opportunities for me to enter into a relationship that I shunned.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, this is gonna make me sound like a dick, but I was talking to 2, 3.
You're out about.
I was-
You're a man about town.
I was dating multiple women at the same time. Loose term of dating. If we weren't in a relationship, you just like
You were seeing. Let's just say that. You were
Correct.
seeing a bunch of different women.
yeah. So I never wanted to lock down, and I would cut myself off to other options.
Yeah.
But
You wanted
that's
freedom.
That's my 22-year-old post puberty, fucking raging hormones, just out of college talk, right?
Yeah.
Finally have money, not a student anymore. Just wanted to fucking sow the oats, baby. But now I could see the value in a relationship, but it's only the right one. It always bothered me when I was younger that, like you said, freedom. I hated the fact that I needed to always think about someone else when I make decisions.
Yeah.
That part in my 20s is what I disliked about relationships. Also, because I'm very loyal, I would never do anything promiscuous, especially cheating. I'm honestly loyal. So the fact that I was also stopping myself from that because, like you said, I wanted the freedom of choice.
Yeah, you're not going to
Multiple
have your
options.
cake and eat it too. It's either
Right.
one or the other.
If I entered in a relationship, that's
all
one.
in.
So I didn't want to do that for both parties. Would have been bad. But now, as you said, yeah, now older, I still like the freedom, but this is going to sound crazy, but I would prefer to be in a relationship now. And I would never thought I would say that for like my entire 20s.
I think it's that crazy. Actually, you're more probably in line with the normal progression of life.
Yeah. But like I said, I'm not for a lot of people are serial daters. They'll force themselves into a relationship.
Yeah.
I just let it. If it takes 2 months, if it takes 8 years to happen, that's the way it is.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was just thinking about it. I was like, I think as I've gotten older, I worry about this sometimes. Like, I think as I've gotten older, I'm less likely to have the patience assimilate to someone else's life and lifestyle. Like, you know what
That's
I mean?
a huge part of it. Yeah.
And I was thinking about, like, I think there is you hear both sides, but like that I do think is one of the benefits of like marrying young. Like there is a huge downside, but one of the positives, at least I've seen play out, I've seen it play out the opposite, but one positive is that you don't know yourself 100%, so you begin to, like, I look at it as like a tree. It's right. You grow together. So like you become yourself with someone. So like, you know what I mean? Like there's less to have to kind of like negotiate because you've already kind of grown together. Whereas if you're like a 30-odd-year-old man, and let's say you
Set in your ways.
and let's say you get with someone who's also 30-odd years old, who's figured out life to the way they like it, and now it's like you got a lot that you now need to negotiate. And I don't know, like as much as I sometimes think about I want a relationship, I worry that I'm like, oh, I might have like, and this is just me, I'm speaking, that I do wonder I'm like, imagine having to like deal with someone or like, clean up after someone or figure out how they like something, and oh, well, that's different than the way I like it, and like have to negotiate all those things.
But I think
I'm not against it. I'm just
right. There is someone out there where you won't have to negotiate hard. That's what I would say.
I hope, but I don't know. I think it's just people. Some people are just different. Like you like things a certain way, and like there's no way. I mean, at least from anyone I've talked to who's gotten married, that's a major part of the early, like the first year or two. Is like, all right, like how do we do things now? Like, you do it that way, I do it this way, and it's probably not always like an argument, but like there's definitely like that period of coming together, and it's like no longer how you do it or how I do it. It's like how we do it, and that might be something as simple as like, what side of the bed do you like to sleep? We both can't sleep on the left side of the bed. Like there's got to be, like that's just a poor example.
It's often what appears on the surface as the minute things that are the toughest to deal with.
That's what people always say. It's like it's the littlest of things. Like when do you like to go to sleep? When to eat breakfast? Like what is your bathroom habits? Like do you chew with your mouth open or
Yeah,
closed?
manners are
Like,
huge,
things
big
like
time
that,
with me.
you know? And you don't know all that stuff, right? Like there's a lot of like the minutia of living with people. So I don't know. I don't know why I'm bringing this up. I think it's just fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough business, relationships. Especially now, what's the future of dating going to be like?
Oh, dude, I have no idea, man. I have
People
not
are
been
Zoom
out there.
dating. You hear about this shit?
Yep, I was talking to someone about this yesterday. Which
That's
I don't even
fucked
think
up to me.
I did that once.
Went on a Zoom date.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Explain.
so I think this was early on in the pandemic. I was like, all right, well, it's like such an unfruitful thing. Like, come on, let's be honest. As grown people, date less for
Physical pleasure.
yeah. I mean, there's physical companionship is the point. Like, I can have friends for. I mean, I'll be honest. I have friends for dialogue. Like, if I want to talk to someone
Right. I see where
or
you're going.
seek counsel, I have my friends for that. I have family members for that. And I'm not trying to say this in a mean way, but like, if that's my number one goal, like those boxes are for most part already checked. Like for most people, right? If you're in your 30s, you have a problem, you know who the people are you're going to seek out
Fair.
for advice. So at our age, you want there's the physical companionship. It doesn't even necessarily mean sex. It's just like I'm not going to ask Rob to hold me if I'm in like, an emotional state. It's unlikely I'm going to
I'll
seek
hold you, though.
out for that. I know you would. This is getting a little sensual now. I
Yeah.
have a candle burning. Turn the lights down
Yep,
a little bit.
Yep, we got the Birchin candles. Who you guys know?
Yes,
Got
we
one
got
rocking.
Burton's candles lighting up.
Nice.
But yeah. Anyway, so like, long story short, I met a girl on online dating because really, like, that's the only how are you meeting people nowadays. It's like,
I
online
might have to
dating.
do it. I've never done it. I'm a purist, as I say.
dude, it's
But-
like you might have to if that's
Yeah,
your, if
this
you
is
want
the
to meet
future.
someone.
I haven't spoken to a woman in that way. I'm gonna stop ranting. I'll let you finish. And
Fine.
since the pandemic started, not even a message, nothing. I got zero going on.
Well, and I think that's true across. Yeah, I mean, dude, it's like I have not talked to. I mean, I have not talked to a woman in a romantic setting in a long
Months.
while, a long time. But anyway, so like the Zoom,
Tell me
the
the
Zoom
story, yeah.
call. So you set up, you talk, you chit chat, and then you say, all right, let's set up a Zoom call. I mean, that's what it is. It's a glorified Zoom meeting, right, where you're talking to someone, and you're trying to have a date. And I mean, that's it. There's not much romance to it.
Weird that you're in front of your iMac having a date.
Yes,
That's
same
not
place.
weird.
Same place I do my studies all day. Yeah.
The fuck.
No, but
And
it's
some people are eating during it. It's like this is weird.
it's a glorified interview.
Yeah, no, I don't.
So,
But you
Jesus.
came away from the experience. You did not like it.
I mean, honestly, to me, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't like. The thing is with the online dating, or really just dating in general, and you kind of touched on this earlier when you were talking about how like there's certain people that you're just physically dialed into, and and we've talked. I think you and I have talked about this in
Yes.
And I think I always had the theory that with online dating, it definitely, and I've gotten a lot of flack for this, but I think if you're a woman, I think online dating is the greatest invention ever created for you. And a lot of women, I've gotten arguments with women over this. They say I'm incorrect. I'm like, no, you're out of your mind.
Is it the filtration process? That's why.
Correct. If you're, let's just be freaking frank. I love that expression. But
Yeah.
it's like, so look at it this way.
Taking umbrage. That's one of my favorite terms.
That's
I love taking umbrage.
That's great. That's a very archaic language. I like that. But like, look at this way. If you're a beautiful woman, let's be honest. You're trying to maximize your options,
Which will be many.
right? Let's
But you have a lot of options to
let's
deal
call
with.
a spade to throw another expression out there. You're a beautiful woman.
We should just speak in idioms
I
from
like
now
this,
on.
yes. Let me paint you a picture, right? 22, beautiful 22. You live in New York City.
know what we call those? Smoke shows.
There we go. It's just
Babe.
you walk down the street and
Smoking.
people see the fire. It's smoke signals going up in the world. You
Fire
have
alarm,
construction workers looking. You got Wall Street guys looking. You got other women looking, right? You got
Yeah, that's when you know. When
this
you have
beautiful 22-year-old
when other
woman
women are checking you
walking
out.
down the road. Her options in New York City are, and I don't care, girls, you can disagree with me. You're insane. If you're that attractive
Infinite.
and they are around, you have so many options. You could be dating a 35-year-old Wall Street guy who makes $200K a year, and he will wine and dine you as if you were the last woman on earth. Right? Because let's be honest, most men don't realize their options. That dude can pull down on many a woman, let's be honest. He don't know it in most cases.
talks, bullshit walks.
Right? So it's like if you're in online dating, you can easily, And if you're shrewd, look out, put your cutesy pictures on there, write whatever you want to write, and you're gonna get inundated with
Don't need to write much.
as many takers as you have the time in the day to talk to. And if you're shrewd as fuck, I'd be figuring out what job do they have, what do they look like, all the details, all the things you need to know, and then you pick the best one. How else would you do that in the real world? Because here's the thing with online dating, it has voided out, my opinion. I'm going to sound very shitty for saying this, but the one kryptonite to this the archetype of this 22-year-old woman that we're talking about is biology. Because put it this way, like we said, men and women, there's so many things under the surface that are guiding your decision making when you meet someone in real life. Their smell, like we don't think about it, but like people smell, they have pheromones that
Important.
you just might find intoxicating. You're not even consciously aware of it, but like see some of these people with strange matches, and you're like, maybe that's part of it. Like maybe how something about them, their physiology,
Great point.
has
'Cause
kind of hacked your brain.
it's true, because the thing for me is skin texture. The weird thing. It's like I could tell if they have soft skin or not. I love
So it's like that's the thing with online dating. It kind of like gives you that, especially if you're a woman, that gap where you can be. And I'm not even saying this in a negative way, but if you're like, I want to optimize my options. Let's say want to get married or whatever. I want to be with someone who's successful, who has these certain qualities. Man, you can like look at 100 guys, pick the best one, and only spend your time with them. Whereas if you met them in real life, there might be a guy in there that doesn't meet your criteria, but they got that biological X factor that you just can't get around. So
and
that's
you're
my opinion.
you're unaware of the other options, so that the chances are greater for that courtship.
I think that's true. Like I think we 100% underestimate all of the biological variables and stimulants that affect our decision making. And like we're just not aware. Like smell is huge. From what I understand, like if you, I think a evolutionary biologist said this is between men and women. If a man has a scent, this is unconscious, that is in some way similar to a female's male relative, brother, father, they will
It's always the father. It's always
no, but they will not like you. They will actually somewhere in their biology will say right person. And they said it makes sense because genetically you don't want to be breeding with someone who is too genetically similar. Like that that's why it's not advantageous for close relatives to mate. And they said he's like this is like inborn. So like you might not like this person and you might think of a reason. Oh, like they said this, they do this. But the real reason might be, in this case, the scent. They smell a certain way that your body's just
triggers something you to repel. Yeah.
So you give it a word or a description, but the real reason is, in this case, let's say scent. So I don't know. I just ranted.
Yeah. No, I think. Sorry, I think a lot of that is true. I think online dating. It's also you could just do it from the comfort of your own home. You could do it from the couch.
Yeah.
It's just so easy to do it. But yeah, I might have at some point losing it, losing my touch, because my go-to date is drinks at the bar. Can't do that.
That's not happening.
Not happening for a long time. So
Happening right now.
gonna have to change that up.
I'm curious. COVID testing is going to become like a new mainstay.
Have you been tested recently?
I mean, it might happen, right?
Yeah. You better have a recent test that you can prove.
Like I thought about this recently. It was like, is that going to become like you want to go? Let's say you go on online dating, you meet someone. Say you do whatever, a Zoom call or whatever, and at some point, like we're in New York, you can go out. People go out. They go out to eat. Like there's outdoor dining and stuff like that. Like you can go out. And I'm curious if that's going to become like a thing where like, all right, like let's go out, but like, have you gotten your COVID test recently?
You're also wearing masks. Shit, you can't get close. Oh, I hate all of it.
Yeah, not much you can do about it though.
I'm gonna have to adjust.
Or just live like a monk for a while, which a lot of people are doing.
Well, I'm just gonna be disciple of Giorgio Tsoukalos next 2 years, people, and then come out the other side with big hair. Skin might be a little orange. Then I'll be ready for dating.
I think it's funny 'cause people are like Giorgio Tsoukalos. That go look up ancient alien memes.
That's all
the
you
guy.
need to do.
That's the guy.
The guy that says, if it's not I'm not saying it's aliens.
Yes.
Everyone will
I like that,
know
yeah.
who he is.
Like
And he looks like he's just stoned to the gills.
he's not doing his camp any favors. Let's put it that way.
No, yes, it's true. I never thought about
He
it that
doesn't
way.
add any credibility.
That's really
to his
funny.
life's
actually.
work. But then again, he probably put more eyeballs on these ideas than anyone else. It's the double-edged
If
sword.
you went out into New York right now and asked everyone what Ancient Aliens is, they'll know because of him.
They might not even
So
know
it-
what ancient aliens is, but if you said there's a guy, he's crazy,
He talks about aliens all the
got
time.
crazy hair,
Oh.
looks like this, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I know that guy."
Yeah, exactly. So like you said, it's a double-edged sword. In the scientific community, not doing
no,
wonders
he
for him.
ain't doing dick for no
But
one.
in the populace, yes.
You like, what if you were like one of these guys and you're like, this theory, and they're like, are you friends with? There's a guy with big hair. Yeah, leave me alone. I'm not talking to you anymore.
Yo, Chris, they have alien cons. I almost went to one.
Dude, I joined Reddit's Ancient Aliens and it's just on fire. There's always stuff
Excellent.
there. It's people are always posting shit.
I
Pretty
went.
amazing.
There's 2 Reddit holes. They're not even holes. They're abyss. It's the abyss. And what has Nietzsche said about the abyss? If you gaze too long about the abyss gazes back.
There you go, man.
And
Stare into the fire. The fire stares back.
Right. The Game of Thrones abyss stared back at me. I went too deep. Back at me. I went.
Oh, I'm mad. I think, see, for me, you getting these ancient aliens is kind of a danger zone because I've gone down these rabbit holes and it's like, extremely fulfilling,
Cool, man.
but it is a deep hole and it just doesn't you're just never going to get to the bottom.
That's the problem. You'll never see the see the end.
It's like, there's some of these mysteries out there that I just think, like, for example, like with the ancient aliens. And I've heard this from other people. For example, there are things, let's call them artifacts on the planet that are not explained. Like, for example, I think we might have mentioned one before. Like in a part of Africa, don't know where, you can look this stuff up very easily, and you might find things that disprove it. But like, they did archaeological digs in a certain place, and they found uranium, but the uranium was in a form after enrichment. Pretty much what they found was what they believe was an ancient reactor. And yeah, and there's like, so that's one example, and you can look that up. Look up like ancient nuclear reactor in Africa. There you go. Go down that rabbit hole. It exists. Another is like a map, like this type of map in China that's like a topographical map over this huge expansive area that they're like, there's no way. How was this map made? How did it cover this area? How would you have seen? You would almost need to be way up in space, like very high up in a floating apparatus to be able to see. Yeah, correct. Like an aerial view. So like that's a mystery out there. There's like this
A lot of those actually.
tons of them. So it's like, and no one really. I kind of wonder if a lot of like the scientific community kind of just doesn't want to dig into them. Like, we're not gonna get an answer, and like it's just not worth. It's not the mystery's just like we're gonna avoid it. We're just gonna say that. Yep, that is a mystery. I'm not
Chalk it up.
chalk it up. It's gonna go into the X-Files.
But quick plug, History Channel. Not that they need my like low level plug, but Ancient Aliens season 16, November 13th.
Oh, really?
It's back, baby. Again, we're
Dude,
getting
16
another
years?
season. Yeah,
Holy! I think they'll keep making it. Why would they stop?
it's never gonna stop.
No, obviously, if it hasn't, the ratings have never gone down
No.
because they just keep banging them out.
It's great. I love the History Channel.
It's
I
a
love-
great show, man. I mean,
People like it.
I sat and I watched two episodes or 3 episodes with you. It's highly. I don't even say it's entertaining. It is it is educational, because even if the theories, like the mysteries that they bring up are legitimate mysteries, if you don't buy their explanations, that's up to you, but they at least detail the mystery, and that in itself is interesting.
But they're also, I think we talked about this while we were watching it. While you're diving into the mystery or trying to unpack it, you're also learning about mythology. You're learning about folklore, like legit traditions, and you're learning about history of this civilization. You're learning legitimate facts about all these people from all around the world
100%.
while you're exploring the mystery.
Yeah, no, it's I think it's correct. You walk away with learning actual data points. I mean, there was the one civilization they talked about. That's a legitimate civilization.
Yeah, man.
I didn't know about it. Now I know it existed. There's certain aspects of it that you might not believe their conclusions, but yeah, I mean, this crazy, cool stuff, man.
Great. Love it. So yeah, I got anything else? There has to be some.
I mean, there's
Right.
tons of stuff we could talk about. Like, I was thinking, I watched. Did you watch the UFC fight this weekend?
No, I'm not into UFC or boxing or anything.
So the guy who, just to give you some highlights. I mean, anyone who's listening to this watched it.
Yeah, I know you like combat. That's
I
why.
like combat sports, and I didn't watch this fight. I didn't see the fight. I missed it, but I read the highlights. But what's interesting? So the guy who fought the main event. This guy has fought 29 times in like high level fighting, like 29 times in like ranked fights. He's never lost.
Like he's fought pay-per-view fights and never lost.
Never
like
lost.
High level. All
9
right.
times. 32 years old.
That's fucking
And I
good.
don't even think. I think they said he has never bled.
That's probably an exaggeration, but that's
like,
awesome.
not in the ring, and it's just
Yeah.
insane. Like, I was thinking about this. It's like, imagine you were that good at something.
What style is he? Muay Thai?
He's Russian guy. He fights like what is it called? There's a Russian style of fighting. I mean, and honestly, in UFC now they all fight the same style. It's MMA, mixed martial arts.
They do a little of everything.
Yes, his background would be like Samba and like wrestling.
Okay.
That makes sense. Samba is like a Russian fighting system.
Sambo is Brazilian.
Samba. See, we'll look it up real quick. We have the trusty computer. It is.
TKD is big.
Combat Samba.
The combat Samba.
Combat Samba. So if you saw, and I don't know if you saw John Wick. John Wick.
Yes, only the first one. Though.
Okay, so in the third John Wick,
Didn't get to that one.
when he's in he's going through this Russian opera house that's also a front for like the training of children into becoming assassins. Anyone who's seen the scene, he goes through a room where there's a bunch of young men and they're kind of fighting, they're wrestling. That's Sambo, the Russian wrestling fighting style. Anyway, right, this guy has fought at a high level and has never been beaten, right? It's insane. And the question I asked someone is that when you're that good, right, and you're a warrior, right, you are a practitioner of the combat arts, like you fight for fun, like this is what you get off on doing, you enjoy it, this competitive act. Are you happy? And he retired after this fight. But 29.
Yesterday.
Last fight.
Yesterday was the last one.
Correct. His last fight was yesterday. Are you a little disappointed that you were never beaten? That you never came across someone who could outdo you? Or are you like, fuck, I'm the boss, man.
Yeah.
No one can
I think
touch
you like
me.
being retired undefeated, especially in that sport with the hubris involved. Yeah, definitely.
It's an interesting thing, and like he had fought.
Domination. That's complete domination.
It really is, and in a straight up primal way. The greatest line I saw was like, this is for those who watch UFC, but he had fought and beaten in a devastating fashion Conor McGregor, and Conor McGregor, I believe, was trying to get to fight him again, and as he did his retirement, sent out a tweet or something to the effect of like, I don't need to fight these guys. He's like, I've already choked them out. 2 different guys. He's like, I've choked them out before. Like, it's pretty much like I've raped them both before. Like I've choked.
two main.
I've
guys
exerted
here.
my will against both of them. Why would I ever fight them again?
Neat.
It's like an insane. I was just trying to put my mind in someone like that because I've never been in physical confrontations. My will would not be exercised on others. It'd probably be the exact opposite.
Okay, so I have a question. If you're that dominant of a mixed martial art and you're that level undefeated ever in UFC, is there anyone on the planet that can beat you in a fight, one-on-one?
In a cage?
It seems like he could kick anyone's ass. That's what it seems like.
Probably not. I mean, that's I think the beauty of, and I think this is why I enjoy. I don't really, I don't. I've said it here on. I don't watch much sports, but I do like. I like the combat sports, and I think part of it is because it's. I think a lot of sports are abstractions from combat, and then here it is. It's like, let's get rid of the abstraction, like having an actual fight.
It's like gladiatorial.
Yeah, but I what I find like really interesting with this fights is that it shows mortality really well, and it shows aging really well, because there is an expiration date on everyone, and like if this guy kept fighting, eventually
someone's gonna beat him. Yeah.
someone will be better.
It's true.
And it's just like a cycle that never ends. Like, you will never be the best forever. Like, it's just not possible. You have your moment in the sun, but there's an expiration date on it. And I think the true key is to know when it's time to bow out, and to bow out well before that the next evolution
Right off
takes
into the
place.
sunset on top. Yeah.
Yeah, because he pretty much said, I'm done. I beat everyone. I'm the best.
The,
Goodbye.
Yeah. That's pretty badass. I like that. Whoever this guy is, that's fucking sick.
Hey, this is Russian guy from Dagestan.
But a lot of... Yeah, he sounds like an animal. Just by that description
He
alone.
wrestled bears as a child.
Yeah. I bet you that's not even a story. I bet
No,
you he
it's
really
this
did
video.
it. Yeah, there you go. So don't mess with the Ruskies, baby.
Oh man, it's tough breed out that way.
So American sports they don't have that aspect, but it is, you're only really good from 18 to like 30. So the length is longer in like hockey or football, but a lot of players do make that mistake. They try to continue their career when they probably should have just called it quits, and it leads to long-term effects. It does affect them in the future with like brain issues.
Well, in this case, this guy, his mom wanted him to stop, and part of it was like, yeah, it's like, you're at the height of your game now at 32, but when you're 42, that's when you might start to feel the
do you want to be able to think clearly when you're in your 40s? You might want to stop. Yeah.
Knowing when to bow out, I think it's
Huge.
tough.
Because it's hard for someone, especially for him, that has that competitive instinct. Really hard, because like you said, there's nothing like the adrenaline he probably feels when that bell rings. There's nothing that's going to replicate that ever in his life.
Nothing close.
Yeah. So he's going to miss that, but you have to do it for your long. Smart.
This is why I go back to my theory of warfare, and I don't know if it's probably wrong, and I think a lot of soldiers might. I actually think I'm right. Is that
Shocker.
like is that I think that's part of the issue when it comes to post-traumatic stress. I do think. Well, I don't know. I think a lot of people like being soldiers. I think they like war. I think that there's a good chunk of people out there who they have more problems when they stop being soldiers. Are soldiers. Because when you're a soldier and life is on the line, that might be romanticizing, but every that glass of water tastes the best water you ever have. Every moment's precious. You're living life on a razor's edge, and when that's done, that's when I think you start to have the problem.
Do you think that's just ingrained in humans that they enjoy that, or is that learned while you're training for the military?
That I don't know. I think with the military, I think they're good at trying to pick. And when I guess I'm thinking is like, military is vast. Like, you could be in you could be in the military and like
be a pencil pusher,
not deal with combat at all. But I'm thinking like people who are like maybe like Green Berets, soldiers, Marines.
Those guys are cool, actually.
Like people who actively
Navy SEALs, Delta Force.
Yeah, people who see combat and it's like
high level combat.
Yeah, so like Marines is a good example.
That's
like,
a good one.
You know, I think part of it is that they're very good at filtering for certain qualities that will work in those environments. So that's part of it, I think. Like Navy SEALs is a good one, or the Green Berets. they're filtering for qualities that will excel that world, that environment, and then they train. They strengthen those qualities. But like I've heard with Navy SEALs, the biggest thing they're looking for is like a will. Like they're the type of people that when it's like,
Determination and passion.
yeah, it's like if I make my mind up to do something, I'm gonna do it, and it's like you could kill me, but I'm gonna keep
Right,
doing
because
it.
the physical you can work on. You can train physical.
You can get
Keep that drive,
stronger,
yeah.
yeah. And like I've heard, like they're not most Navy SEALs. They're not like big
No.
monsters.
They're
no.
like
they're like they're
they're-
scrappy.
exactly. They're not big dudes. They're like 6 foot, $175.
Maybe even
most of them-
maybe
maybe smaller. Yeah.
Like it's just the type of people that like, all right, you can kill me, but I'm not gonna stop. They're like pit
Exactly,
bulls, you know?
exactly.
They lock their jaw, and it's just like, nah,
Like this is the mission agenda. It's getting done.
correct. And it's like everything else can be taught after that. Like
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
what the quality that they're looking for. So I think for a lot of those people that have that quality, that warrior gene, call it that. I don't know, man. I think that they're probably, whether they admit it or not, I bet you they're very happy in combat.
Yeah, they'll never say it though. Some of them do. They'll glorify it, but
Maybe, yeah.
it's very similar, that adrenaline rush. You'll never feel that the way you felt in the middle of a battle, like in the octagon, or if you're in overseas
you're-
fighting on like a tour. You're never going to replicate that feeling.
So like imagine now you have your body's become calibrated to that, and now you're like shopping for cereal in ShopRite. You hear people say like, "Oh, they got post traumatic stress." I just think it's like your body's going through withdrawal. It's just like not used to the. It's like seeing the world now with goggles on, or you were seeing. It's like going from being like being able to see the colors and not being able to see. How to adapt to that.
It's wild. I admire that part of people though. If you can pass the Navy SEAL training, that's very impressive. It's so hard. I watched a documentary on it. It's on Netflix. There's a 45-minute doc on just the training regimen,
Oh really?
just to become a Navy SEAL.
It's
Fucking
insane. It's insane.
It's wild. It's just so fucked up. It's dude, timing is a lot. You gotta like deep dive. It's not snorkeling. What's the deep dive one? Scuba diving.
Would they have a tank on their
You
back?
got a tank.
Yeah.
Scuba
Yeah,
diving.
yeah.
Dive down deep, like open something and then bring it back up in like 30 seconds. It's insane.
Yeah, they do full on like where you got to dismantle stuff, put stuff
Yeah.
together underwater. And that's like after you've gotten through buds. I think like the first 8 days is like hear about that's like
that's
boot
what
camp.
you're running and swimming and doing. shit.
You like don't sleep. And
Yeah,
then-
you don't sleep. No.
And then after that, if you pass that, which a lot of people, that's like most people are getting-
Filters out most of them.
then you start to do like skill based stuff like that, like diving and like crazy shit. But what I was gonna say was go back to the ancient. Oh yeah, so like you know how like I heard this once, was like they'd have a war or fight. One thing they did to kind of fight against this, what we're talking about, is that when a soldier would come back, they would have to spend 7 days outside tribe in like decompression mode, where like they had to go stay away from everyone 7 days so that like they could kind of their mind and body could settle back into like normal society. Brought in
There's,
about that.
they have so many traditions. Jewish people. It's always about going out for days and doing something.
I think a lot of people, a lot of civilizations probably came to the same. Yo, that guy was just murdering people for 5 days.
He needs a detox.
Like, let's give him a break. He can't just like now he's gonna go home and his wife is like I don't want to say nagging,
Gonna
but
stab
probably
her with a
complaining
knife.
about something.
Yeah.
He's like, motherfucker, I killed 100 people.
for your safety.
Yes, give me a break. I
Yeah.
need a detox.
Now I'm getting chirped about not coming home on
I
time.
didn't clean.
Yeah,
my
exactly.
feet
I left
at the
my dish-
flap or whatever. Like, left my earthworm dish dirty.
I put my dish in the sink the wrong way.
How many people I speared? You look at this. You look at this spear.
There's blood stain.
The
Dry.
DNA of 1,000 men on this thing. Yeah, crazy shit.
Disemboweled some motherfuckers with that one, but yeah. War is war is. Some people love war movies. They'll just only watch war movies. Maybe it's because it's the closest thing they'll get to that feeling.
And it's always, I think it's, joy.
I'll tell you who likes war movies. The Academy. They love war movies. Every war movie gets nominated for something.
Really?
Let's go down the list. Hurt Locker, 1. Saving Private Ryan. What was that last one that came out this year? 1916. They were
Yeah.
all over that one.
Well, what about the Christopher Nolan one? Did that win? Or was that
That
nominated?
was this Christopher Nolan one.
Oh, okay. What about
Dunkirk got nominated. I think it won like sound or something. It didn't. Actually, 1916 wasn't Christopher Nolan. That was Dunkirk. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, people like war.
War movies are
war
just
is
cash.
is a constant amongst all human
Award
civilization.
cows. Yeah.
If it wasn't something that human beings were attracted to,
Exactly. That's the point.
wouldn't be the one commonality amongst all cultures. Well, dude, we've been talking for, let's see, I think almost 2 hours. Anything else you want
Really?
to say?
That flew by. That's awesome.